Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hurdle Podcast. We're talking NBA playoffs today, NBA awards, and we got returning guest Avery Dohner. How you doing today, Avery?
It's good to be back, Bailey. I'm glad you started it up again, adding in the
Definitely.
reels, mixing it up a bit. Glad to be talking
Yeah,
basketball again.
yeah, absolutely. Going with some new stuff, but we're gonna be talking NBA playoffs here, which we never actually got to do on this pod, so it's kind of refreshing for us. But we're gonna start in the Eastern Conference, 1 through 8, work our way down, and we're gonna start with Bucks Heat, which Game 4 just finished up, and Jimmy Butler dropped 36.
Jimmy freaking Butler, man. Just carrying the whole team. No hero. It's wild. I really thought the
Yeah.
Bucks were just going to sweep this series.
I did too. Like Miami was really mediocre during the regular season. Jimmy Butler had to hit a lot of clutch shots against a lot of bad teams for them to make the playoffs. Like it's like, oh, Jimmy Butler scores 35 against Orlando and hits a buzzer beater. And it's like, oh, like if he did that against Milwaukee, it would kind of mean something. And guess what? He's doing it against Milwaukee now. He's hitting big shot after big shot. 56 in a massive game 4 where Giannis returned and had a 28-point triple double or 26-point triple double. Brooke Lopez scored 36, and the Bucks still can't pull it out on the road. Um,
I mean, it's really just a
Pretty freaking
testament.
awesome.
It's really just a testament to Jimmy Butler. I mean, this Heat team looks like they're going to have to blow it up here in 1 or 2 years. A ton of bad
Mhm.
contracts and old
Yeah, Duncan
players. And
Robinson.
yep.
Yeah, the Duncan Robinson contract. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the whole talk going into this was like, when Miami makes it out of the play-in, if they do, um, like what are the next steps for them? And no one really knew the answer to that because Jimmy's getting up there in age. They bring in Kevin Love, who was great in game 1, but hasn't really done much since. Um, I felt like he was going to be a bigger part of this Miami team, especially with their like
Yeah.
lack in power forward play because they're out there running like Caleb Martin. Um, and what do you do with Bam? Is Bam going to have to get shipped? And now Hero with the broken hand, he was probably going to be like the main centerpiece from then on. But looking at this Heat team, Jimmy Butler just turns it up in the playoffs, and it almost looks he makes the regular season look like a cakewalk, and then
Yep.
he makes tough basketball look really easy. And he's just a guy you want on your team in a 7-game series. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd want to say that just with the lack of talent on the team, that I can't see him getting far. But right now, I mean, they're up 3-1 against the Bucks. It's really
I know,
hard to
I know,
tell.
and then you got New York and Cleveland coming, either one of them, and it looks like it's going to be New York right now. I kind of like Miami's strength to match Cleveland's strength.
Yeah.
And the Bam Mitchell Robinson matchup there could be interesting. That's if New York takes that series. But the Heat were given a blessing. 2 games without Giannis, they go 1-1. And when it was 2-1 Miami coming into today, and Giannis was coming back, I was kind of eh. But then you take just a gigantic game 4 at home. It was really a must win for Miami because if Milwaukee wins this, they're most likely going to win game 5 at home, and it's Giannis in a closeout game. How do you stop that? And Milwaukee would most likely just win 3 in a row and win in 6. But now they have to win 3 in a row, and they have to come back to Miami and do it again.
Yep.
Um, I just don't see Jimmy Butler allowing this Bucks team, as good as they are. I just don't see Jimmy Butler letting Milwaukee get 3 games in a row on him. It just doesn't make any sense. Like
No.
when it and Jimmy Butler's storyline is just so interesting because it seems like every postseason, like I remember last year, especially when they took Boston 7 games. Granted, they were the 1 seed last year,
Yeah.
but they go 7 games with Boston. He shoots the pull up three, which was, in my opinion, a great shot. Just misses. It was as good of a look as you're going to get for your star player. And everyone's talking about Jimmy Butler, top 10 player in the league. And then this year's regular season happens. People are putting up insane numbers. We'll get into the MVP talks later. And Jimmy Butler not like falls off the map, but people just aren't talking about him. And then postseason comes back around, Jimmy Butler, top 10 player. Jimmy Butler drops
Yep.
56. He's all over the headlines. He's just a guy you want.
It seems like a cycle, yeah. It's definitely a guy you want come playoff time on any team.
Yeah, so
Just
we'll
knows
see what
what's up.
happens. Game 5 in Milwaukee. Giannis is really gonna have to turn it up. They can't have Middleton match up with Jimmy the entire game because 56 is gonna be the answer every time. So um, they need to find some different matchups there, especially with no hero. You think Holiday would maybe get some work there just with how good
Yeah.
defensively he is, and let Giannis see him a few times. Um, but we'll see what Budenholzer does. It just doesn't seem like Milwaukee knows it's the playoffs yet. Like,
No.
what are you doing? Like, you're down 3-1. This is a wasted Giannis season if you lose
Yep.
in the first round. Anything that isn't a trip to the finals is a wasted Giannis season.
With the fully
So
healthy Bucks team as well, which you haven't had.
yeah, exactly. Like Middleton was in and out of the lineup for most of the year. Holiday was there all year long though. Lopez was there all year long. They didn't really sustain any major injuries except for Chris Middleton. And it's just like, wake up. Like,
Yep.
you're in the playoffs. Do something. Like it just doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah.
anything to add in the Miami Milwaukee series?
It's just disappointing for Milwaukee. I mean, you're having one of Lopez's best seasons here, and he's aging, and this team hasn't been this healthy in a playoff run in a bit. Exactly as you said, and I mean, just going through the motions, might lose first round.
It's insane. But moving on, Boston Atlanta. Boston's up 3-1 in this series, going back to TD Garden for Game 5, in which DeJounte Murray is suspended for verbally abusing official and inappropriate contact. That's all I really know about the situation.
He
But
really switched it up, didn't he? Once he left the
the
Spurs, I
Spurs.
mean, prime DeJounte came out.
But yeah, once you leave it's like once you leave Popovich, it's kind of like the Patriots with Belichick. It's like once you leave Belichick, you're off the hook.
Yep.
Everything else is easier. But
Too much freedom. Start acting out.
but Boston is gonna win this series in 5. It's
Without
gonna
a
be
doubt.
over. I believe the game 5 is tomorrow night. I
This
probably
one,
won't even watch it.
yeah, this is one of the least interesting first round series here. I mean,
Yeah.
Trae Young has just proven to not be the answer for Atlanta or maybe for anyone.
hmm
And that
Yeah.
team just doesn't have anything around it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I thought the DeJounte trade was interesting when it happened because you look at it now, you have a defensive guard that can still give you 28 and 6 on any given night with relative ease for DeJounte Murray. He's a great all-around player.
Yeah.
And you say, "Hey, you can go take the best offensive player and we'll try and hide Trae Young on defense and just let him do his thing offensively." It just hasn't worked. Like um, granted, new coach and Quinn Snyder, that's been an adjustment for them. And I think Quinn Snyder
Yep.
is a great coach. He led Utah to, I believe, a 1 seed one year in the West. And Utah was some of the best defensive teams in the NBA when he was there. And you look at this Atlanta team, and they suck defensively. They're
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. And I mean, and offensively, like having DeJounte and Trae is nice, but they haven't put any system around them that works. I mean, their
Mhm.
offense for most of that regular season was just switching between DeJounte and Trae having the ball, sending them a screen while everyone else just stands at the 3-point line. There was no
Mhm.
off ball movement, and it was boring to watch.
Yeah, they're terrible to watch. I hate watching Atlanta. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like it's a lot of stop and stare ISO ball. And granted, Trey Young averages 8 assists a game. Like he can't be the only one playmaking in that offense. And you look at it, I mean, Trey Young should be a great shooter. His percentages are not good. He shoots
He's one of
34% from three.
he's one of the worst 3-point shooters in the league, and since he's come into the league, he's led the league in turnovers.
Yeah. So I just look at their offense, the way it's structured. I mean, Trae Young can make an impact in a game in a series. We've seen it before with the New York series. Like, it's definitely possible. When he's on
Yeah.
fire, the way his ability to stretch the floor is Steph Curry like. I mean, that was kind of his comparison coming out of college. And when he's hot, it he's awesome. He's great. He's a player you want to have on your team, especially offensively, coming down in clutch situations in the last 2 minutes. But when I look at it when he's anything but great offensively, he's kind of just an inefficient 25 and 8 that I don't want defensively on my roster.
Yeah.
And he can't stop anyone from getting to the hole. He's too small to guard the bigger guards, but he doesn't move his feet quick enough to guard any of the smaller guards. And it's not like he was James Harden on those Houston teams where he's getting 2.5 to 3 steals a game, because that's what James Harden was doing.
Yeah.
And while you say, oh, wow, James Harden's horrific on defense, when you look at his effort given into defensive games, at least he's giving you 3 turnovers from the other team.
Yeah.
Trae Young's not doing that. He's giving you
No.
like a half a turnover a game from the other team. So,
I mean, I tuned in for a little bit on that Hawks game, and he's just getting bullied. It's like playground
yeah.
ball. Everything he threw up, he was just getting blocked. He's too short. Defensive
Mhm.
liability. I can't see him leading any team to a
Yeah.
deep playoff run again, really.
I don't really either. And you look at that, I believe Atlanta played Milwaukee that year. They got swept in 4. Like, Drew Holiday had his way with him in that series.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally agree. I don't know if Trae Young can be a number 1 on any championship team. Maybe he can maybe be a 2. He's just such a unique player. Like, at least with guys like Curry, they play defense. And it's not like you can ISO Curry the entire game and have your way with him. And the Warriors run such a unique system where everyone else around him can play defense. You look at Clay, you look at Wiggins, especially Draymond and
Mm-hmm.
Kevon Looney, which is their normal go-to starting 5. Maybe they swap in Poole every now and then. All those guys can play defense.
Yeah.
Jordan Poole, maybe not, but all those guys can play defense.
Well, and Steph
And
took that leap too to gain weight, and he's
yep,
improved defensively a slight bit.
massively, massively, I would argue. Like,
Yeah.
I know Fox has kind of had his way, but there's a lot of screen and roll and dribble handoff and a lot of motion in that Sacramento offense. You have to play great team defense against Sacramento.
Yeah.
That's why they led the league in scoring this year. So, but when I just look at Atlanta, they just can't hang defensively. They have terrible matchups against Boston's wings and Brown and Tatum, and they're having their way.
Yeah.
Tatum had 31, I believe, last night, and wasn't shooting the ball great. And he still had 31. Like, he was inefficient, but he made it his mark on the game, and Jaylen Brown was fantastic. And I worry about the cut on his hand a little bit still. It seems like it keeps opening up, those 4 stitches. Like, I saw he was bleeding yesterday during the game from that thing, and he's got that bandage.
Yeah.
I believe it's on his left hand. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's his left hand. And that might be a worry in some later series for Boston. We'll see how that plays out.
Might be having
Moving on.
some.
Yeah,
Can
go
you
ahead.
hear
Sorry.
me still? Might be having some technical difficulties. This college Wi-Fi is a little rough.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just making sure you could still hear me. It was looking like I was
Yeah.
frozen from here. All right.
No, you're good. All right, we're gonna move on. But yeah, Boston's probably gonna win that series come
No, without a
tomorrow.
doubt.
Speaking of series that's already over, Philly Brooklyn. Philly sweeps 4-0. Brooklyn clearly not that great without 2 of the best offensive talents of the last decade, especially Durant. They were below 500 coming in. I had Philly, I believe, winning in 5, which I thought was kind of aggressive, but I thought it was slightly passive as well. And Philly doesn't even need Embiid to close out Game 4. Tyrese Maxey really stepped up to the plate, and James Harden he was great in Game 1. James Harden has looked just fine. There were some questions about his health coming into this series, but it was just an awful series. Like,
Yeah.
Harden and Embiid had their way on the pick and roll, and when they needed a bucket, they went to Tyrese Maxey, and he had his way too. So
Yep.
people were kind of saying maybe Bridges can go get him a game, and it just never happened.
Yeah, if you're Brooklyn though, you don't have too much to be upset about. I mean, everything shifted in the middle of this year, and you got some playoff experience with your young players. Bridges is getting those first playoff reps of being that first option, right? You're going to need a bigger body in there. Claxton can handle Embiid and all, and you're going to need another guard, and they might be able to go get that this offseason.
They're going to need some much more potent scoring. I like the rest of the team that they have. I mean, Joe Harris has to go. If he can't shoot, he's worthless. Like,
It's another one of those
he
bad.
has to go. Like, he hasn't been able to shoot for the last 2 years. I think he got like 4 years, 72 million or something like that.
Duncan Robinson type
18,
contract.
yeah, that's got to go. It's atrocious. But I like Mikal. He's a great 3 and D wing. You definitely can't
Yep.
be a number one on a team, but I think this with the scoring output that you saw, he can easily be. He'd be a very high third tier player on a championship team or a very low second tier player on a championship team, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, I think he's just a great option to have. I like Nick Claxton, and he was great defensively this year and led the league in field goal percentage. I think he was almost up near 70% from the field, which is just absurd. Um, so I like him too. I like the addition of Cam Johnson. They just need some dudes who can put the ball in the hole. They don't have any guys that say, "Hey, we can give it to you. Just go get me a bucket." Like
Yeah.
Spencer Dinwiddie's not doing that. So, yeah, they just need. It's funny once you trade away star power, you need star power. But I think for me, Philly is much more the storyline here because, like, the whole debate between Jokic and Embiid, which we'll get into much later, is like neither of them have had playoff success, and they're the two best centers we've seen since like prime Dwight Howard, probably, maybe Shaq,
Yeah.
if you want to go a little farther back, like especially offensively, maybe the best offensive center since Shaq, and they just don't have success in the playoffs. So for me, Philly round one didn't mean jack unless they lost, which I don't think anyone was expecting Philly to lose. So for me, it's definitely going to come down to this series against Boston. Um, that you just have to beat the two best teams in the East are clearly Milwaukee and Boston. Milwaukee right now, but during the regular
Yeah.
season was
Yeah.
clearly Milwaukee and Boston. And then there was a clear tier one of those two teams, and then Philly.
Yeah.
Because Tatum played some awful games against Philly, and Boston still won those games.
Yeah.
So you gotta go win a playoff series.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical on Philly for sure. I mean, just the winning capability, but they lack a little bit in depth. But I think Tyrese Maxey is very underrated. I think he's one of the best third options in the league. If Harden wasn't there, I mean, I think he'd be a very good second option as well. So if it comes down to a Boston series here between Philly and them, I think that's going to 7 games.
You do.
I actually, yeah, I do.
Interesting. Yeah, I think everyone kind of predicted Philly and Boston matching up here. Um, but when you look at, I believe on the predictions thing, I had it going in 5. I don't think Boston is really that worried about Philly. I mean, Maxey has definitely grown. I agree with you there. He is one of the better third options in the league. His ability to put the ball in the hole is something. It's awesome for them. It's another 20. They had 20. They had 3 dudes averaging 20 points per game or higher, and Embiid, who is the league's leading scorer. You had Harden, who is the league's assist leader, also, and then you had Maxey, and Maxey's great for them. I just hate the matchups for Philly. Like Boston is roster wise is just constructed to destroy Philly, in my opinion, because what Philly lacks on the wings, Boston has in Brown and Tatum. Boston has arguably, when healthy, one of the best defensive centers in Robert Williams with his athleticism. And I think he could, with his speed, also able to get up and down the court. I think he can give Embiid a little bit of problems. Like, and when I say give Embiid a little bit of problems, Embiid probably won't score 40 in a game this series. He'll get 35 most likely a couple times, but I don't know if Embiid ever breaks 40, right? That's what I mean by that. But then you look at the guards. I like Brogdon on Harden. I like Derek White. I like Marcus Smart. His ability to shift a series defensively is awesome for Boston. And I just hate all the matchups for Philly because outside of those three guys, I don't care for their roster at all, and I don't trust Doc Rivers in the series.
Yeah, I mean the huge problem for Philly is definitely depth, and it's going to take a lot from Harden and Embiid to keep the
Mhm.
series competitive. But I don't know. I think it's going to be one of the more interesting matchups in the East throughout these
Yeah,
playoffs.
especially if Milwaukee gets knocked out.
Yeah,
Um, that could really be like the Eastern Conference Finals, just with how streaky Miami is. But they're playing great basketball right now. They're doing it when they need to.
true.
Eric Spoelstra can outcoach anyone in any series. But yeah, I just for me feel this series, this Brooklyn series, bring it back. It wasn't about the series. It's about what you do in round 2 and 3 of the playoffs if you make it that far. And you just can't have. They just can't afford to lose any more series while they have Embiid in his prime.
Yeah,
Simple, especially if Milwaukee's out in round 1. You just can't lose any more series. They really just have to win one series, and it's against Boston. And if they could do that, they're most likely going to the finals, which they haven't touched yet. And the last time they were close was the Kawhi shot in Toronto in 19. So
yep, it's right there. Yeah,
yeah, they
another
have to take
boring first round
advantage.
series.
Yeah.
Sure.
Speaking of a more interesting one, we're gonna go Cleveland, New York. New York is up 3-1.
The
Something that
streets
I
of New
did not
York,
expect.
war zone, absolute war zone right now. Don't get caught lacking in New York. They're going crazy.
They are. Um, Jalen Brunson is awesome. That's like my first takeaway from this series. Like he had a great regular season, but I questioned if this New York team was good enough to win around. But he's been great.
Seeing him not get his money in Dallas and then come out and do this for New York, it's really cool. And then having
Yeah.
Dallas miss him.
Yeah. I mean, Dallas struggled without him.
Yeah.
They went and because Brunson was their second ball handler or was their ball handler when Luka was off the court, and then he was still shooting the ball. He was able to play off the ball. He didn't have to have the ball in his hands to be efficient and good. And they seemed to upgrade Brunson into Kyrie, and it got worse because Kyrie has to have the ball in his hands to be good.
Yep.
So when Luka's I believe he had the highest usage rate of anyone in the league this year.
Yep.
So sucks for Dallas, great for New York. I mean,
Yep.
just an awesome signing to pair with Julius Randle. They don't have any superstars, which is what you want in New York, but they're just a great this team. They're just a great team. Like
Mm-hmm.
Brunt, Julius Randle doesn't. All the players besides Brunson and Brunson, that none of them are ball dominant. Like quickly can go get his own go create his own shot. Julius Randle can create his own shot. Jalen Brunson can create his own shot. RJ Barrett has been awesome defensively in this series, really outside of game 1 on Mitchell, which New York still won. New York still won game 1, even though Mitchell had like 40.
Yeah.
Um, and Cleveland just can't match their physicality. It's pretty insane, especially when you run a two big lineup with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen.
Yeah.
They just haven't
Yeah, I'm
adjusted.
very disappointed with Cleveland. I mean, they have just looking at their roster, it just looks like they should have the upper hand here with Donovan, Garland. I mean, and having those two bigs, but New York has really just put on a clinic.
Yeah, I mean Garland had the massive first half in game 2, where I think he scored 26, and they're up like 25 at half. And Cleveland dominated game 2. It's like okay, the tides might turn, but the Knicks have been awesome at home. The defense was incredible in game 3. I don't even know if they gave up 80 points in game
Yeah.
3. And they're just playing much better team basketball. And Cleveland hasn't adjusted at all. They've been awful in their adjustments. Like, if you're going to get out rebounded with two bigs, why aren't you going small? Get some more speed on the court. Push the pace. New York likes to play the slower pace. They like it when games are 96 to 88. They
Yeah.
don't like it when games are 110 to 102. So, and especially when you have great guards, like you have Garland, you have Mitchell, get down the court, get them open looks so before the defense sets up, and go win some freaking basketball games. Like it just doesn't make any sense when you're getting out rebounded at the rate that Cleveland is, and you're running two big guys on the floor. One of them who can't shoot worth a lick, in Jared Allen. He can't shoot at all. He's not spacing the
No,
floor.
no.
So you might as well space the floor and let your guards try and take advantage of some matchups, and they just refuse to do it. It's stupid.
Yeah, I'm excited to see New York blow up here soon. I think New York's gonna take this series here, but I don't know if I'm sold on them. What if they get into a game against Boston in the Eastern Conference? Maybe. I just can't see them being consistent enough. Julius Randle really has a problem with consistency. I've never really seen RJ Barrett pull it out consistently, but
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see New York go far. I'd like to see New York fall off the map.
I mean, yeah, New York, you definitely have to take them on a game by game basis because one night they may shoot 18% from three, and one night they may shoot 36% from three. They just have really streaky shooters. They have really streaky players, like quickly off the bench. One night he may drop 5, one night he may drop 35. Who knows? You never know what you're going to get with New York, and I think their unpredictability, kind of like Miami, which they may match up with, is something that could be an insane series.
Yeah.
Where maybe none of the games are close and it still goes 7 games. Like I could literally see that happening. Like each team could win each game by 15 points and it'd be like, oh, game 7 in New York. What's gonna happen?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, New York's unpredictability is something that they're actually taking advantage of. And they're just playing much better defensively than Cleveland is right now, which is shocking me. And yeah, just Cleveland's lack of adjustment has been incredibly disappointing. But going back to what you said about New York's run further down the road, I just don't see it
No.
personally. Like you said, like I just don't see them. I would probably pick Miami if they come out of this Milwaukee series.
As long as Jimmy stays healthy, I don't think New York has the consistency to
Mhm.
beat Miami in their experience.
Yeah, exactly. Like yeah, and I think Spoelstra would just outcoach. As I do like Thibodeau a lot,
Yeah.
but I just think Spoelstra would just have his way with him. Um, personally. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't see New York being able to make a run. I could see them getting out of the Miami series. I could see them making the Eastern Conference Finals, which I guess you could call that somewhat of a run. But I think to make the finals realistically, whether they get Philly or Boston coming out of that round, I
No.
think they handle Boston. I think they would actually handle Boston better than Philly. Because they don't have anyone to stop Embiid. Like Embiid
No.
would average 40 a game in that series. Um, so I think the matchup for New York, if they do make the Eastern Conference Finals, they should want Philly. Or they should want Boston, excuse me, over
No.
Philly. But yeah, either way, like I would pick, I'd probably pick Boston in 5 and Philly in 5, maybe
Yeah.
6.
I'm just in it for the side talk content that's going to be coming out here.
Okay, moving on. Western Conference. This one's gonna be very quick. Denver, Minnesota. Minnesota wins game 4 in overtime. Jokic has 43, 11, and 6 on insane efficiency, and no one else shows up. While this is a useless game from the point of this series, because Denver is going to win in 5, I think it's a very telling game for the rest of the playoffs. Because these other dudes got to show up for Denver to have any chance against Phoenix.
Yep.
And while we look at the inconsistencies, like we'll get into Phoenix in a little bit in that LA series, when I look at game 4 specifically, especially with as bad of a defensive team that Minnesota is, um, these dudes just got to help Jokic out a little bit. Like, just a little bit. Like, Jokic is going to get his 30, 25 to 30. He's going to be efficient, but he's a passer, which
Yeah.
means these other guys have to show up. And if they're not going to show up, Denver's going to get beat out by Phoenix in 5, maybe 6 games.
Yeah, Denver needs Bubble Murray back. Jamal Murray needs to
Mhm.
step up like he did in the bubble. And Michael Porter Jr. needs to hit his shots. Michael Porter, no pass junior. All contested shots. Has his accidental 1 assist every few games. They both need to hit their shots consistently, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on Denver. I want Jokic to succeed. I mean, he's had these phenomenal seasons around him. They weren't healthy last year, but seeing Jamal Murray, he's really only taken steps back. I worry about the next round for them.
Yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, the other guys just have to get it done. Porter's got to be able to shoot the ball well and stick a little bit of defense, please. Especially
No,
because he's going to be
that's not his
matching up on
thing.
Durant. He's going to be matching up with Durant, though. Like, it's just going to happen.
You gotta
So
keep taking contested threes against Durant. He's gonna wait for him to get up there.
it's going to be. I look at Denver. It seems like they bring the same roster back every year. It's like, hey, we had a great regular season. Cheer for us, please. And then these
Yeah.
superstar teams with 2 great all NBA level players just come in and they just wreck them for 6 games. And then it's like, oh, look at Jokic didn't get it done again. Same thing with Embiid on the other side. Oh, look, Embiid doesn't get it done again. Over and over and over and over. And I feel bad for Jokic that Denver just can't go out and just go get a guy that can play with him. Like Murray is awesome, but then you sign Michael Porter Jr. to this enormous contract, and he hasn't proven much of anything in the playoffs. I can't remember, like at least Jamal Murray before the injuries was proven to be great in the playoffs. He had that
Yep.
series against Mitchell where they were just trading off 50-point games.
One of the
Like
greatest
they were
series in my
fantasy
opinion.
football players. Yeah, it was awesome. And yeah, I totally agree. That bubble series with Utah and Denver was fantastic. But you look at it, it's just like, who else are like if they match up with Phoenix, Porter guarding Durant, that means Durant's going to get 35. Who's going to guard Devin Booker right now?
No one.
Exactly. And we look at, I believe Phoenix played Denver last year, and Phoenix ran them off the court, and they have Kevin Durant this year. So,
And Jokic isn't gonna match up particularly well with Ayton either.
yeah, I mean, I just think Jokic is just going to do Jokic things.
Yeah.
Right? It's just for me, it's just like the supporting cast has to. A couple guys have to start playing at all NBA levels. Like Jamal Murray's gonna have to start playing at all NBA level, and Porter Jr. is gonna have to start averaging 22 points a game and playing a lick of defense. And it's just not gonna happen, in my opinion. So when I look at Denver in the long run, as much as I love Jokic and I want to cheer for them, and I don't want these super teams to win, and I like these naturally built homegrown teams, where's the other scoring going to come from when your number one option, as efficient and as great as he is a passer?
Yeah. It'll be
So
interesting to see.
I think game 4, even though and especially since Denver lost the game in overtime, I just think it's very telling. While we talk about the Minnesota series, it's worth nothing. When we talk about the rest of the playoffs, I think it's worth a lot, especially when it comes to Phoenix. But
Yeah, you're getting a little hasty here. Anthony Edwards, he let us know.
series not
Maybe
over.
3-0, but it's first to 4.
Uh-huh. It is first to 4, and Denver's going to be first to 4 most likely tomorrow night. 2-7, Memphis, LA. LA is up 2-1. And game 4 is on right now. I do not know the score. I know Memphis was down at the end of the first quarter. I what do you say about this series? Like, it's so
It
weird.
leaves me speechless. It is really weird, isn't it? I mean, you got a 7
Yeah.
seed Lakers with LeBron and AD. I mean, AD hasn't been consistent this series. I worry about AD's consistency throughout the playoffs here. When it comes
Do
to,
you?
I do a little bit. I mean, I feel like he's had a problem with consistency, but I still see the Lakers winning this series over the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I'm going back and looking at the playoff prediction video we put out. I had Golden State beating Sacramento just on sheer like playoff experience. And in my opinion, Golden State was going to win all three at home. And even though they were 11-30 on the road during the regular season this year, I just thought Golden State could get one on the road and making them win in six. I don't know why I didn't think the same thing about this LA series. Like you have LeBron and AD.
Yeah.
Why did I not pick LA in six? Like, why did I just not use the same logic? It doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you're gonna win the two at home as a late in LA. You're gonna win the two at home. You're probably gonna get one on the road, which they did in game one with Rui Hachimura, who's been awesome this series. He's averaging 20 a game off the bench for
Baffled.
them. Yeah, he's been great. And it's like Memphis cooled down once they lost Ja. Because he was doing some things that he shouldn't have been doing. And it's just like their shooters haven't really found their rhythm. Like
Yeah.
LA just matches up better.
And not
we
talked
said that
about
in
as
that
much
podcast.
is injuries as well. I mean, you're missing Steven Adams. That's a big part of your defense there, and Brandon Clark as well. Those are two big pieces to the system there.
Yeah, they're rocking Xavier Tillman and
Who went and bullied Anthony Davis.
Roddy. Is it like David Roddy or something like that?
I don't even know.
Yeah, those are your backup centers. Hey, Greg, like you said, AD struggled with consistency, but that means Triple J's got to play 48 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Just so he can guard AD the whole time, and that wears him down offensively. And it's like now Ja has to do it all offensively, which he did in the fourth quarter of Game 3. But you can't start out spotting LA 26 points in the fourth quarter or in the first quarter.
Yeah.
You can't score 9 points in a quarter and expect to win a playoff game. Not going to happen.
And then you have Dylan Brooks desperately trying to make it interesting.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks just generating storylines because he wants to. And to be honest, I think this Memphis team has been kind of just. I hope they make it. I hope Memphis wins. I still want Memphis to win, but it's kind of been insulting this playoff stuff that's happening. Like Dylan Brooks, if he was averaging 20 a game, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. You can talk your stuff then. If
you're shooting more than 30%.
Yeah, if you're up 2-1 in the series, cool. If you're shooting 22% from three, not cool. Not rolling with it. And LeBron's handing it to you on the defensive end.
The perfect comparison I heard is Dylan Brooks is that little brother that you're dominating in 1v1, and then he hits that first three-pointer on you and just mean mugs you.
It's literally like Chris Paul hitting the three to make it a 42-point game. Like, it's stupid. I'm not buying any of it. He wants to be the bad guy. And Ja doing the thing with the things he was doing. Memphis kind of looks like the bad guy. But when you're the bad guy, you got to win games. When the Pistons were the villain of the league for back-to-back years and blowing up the Celtics and the Laker dynasties at the same time while staving off the Bulls dynasties with Jordan, they were winning games. They went back-to-back titles. Not even the 80s Celtics had back-to-back titles.
Yeah.
So, and as much as I hate the Pistons, you have to give credit where credit's due there. Yeah. So
I enjoy the effort. It's nice having some storylines in the league, but you got to produce with it. You can't shoot 3 for 25 after saying you don't respect LeBron, you know?
Yeah. You actually have to make an impact on the game. You can't just kick them in the nuts and call it a day. So, frustrating. Frustrating from Memphis. But they do have a chance to take game 4. Do you know the score on that game?
Let me look.
Lakers are up 4.
Lakers are up 4?
Lakers are up 4. 8 minutes left in the third.
Yeah.
64-60 LA. But if the Lakers win this game, series is over.
Without a doubt.
Memphis might take game 5. Who cares? Because the Lakers will take game 6. It's
Yeah,
LeBron and AD. They're going to get one of the last 3 games, and it won't matter. So,
yeah, I agree.
really
This,
disappointing showing from Memphis when all your scorers are healthy. Disappointing showing.
yeah, I agree. This is one of the weirdest matchups of the first round, though,
Hmm.
without a doubt.
You made an interesting point about AD. Um, I don't worry about his consistency as much, just because Triple J has been so good defensively this year, and the rest of the teams in the West don't have a Triple J. Like
Yeah,
if it's LA and Phoenix coming to the Western Conference Finals, um, Ayton is not going to hold AD at all. AD will have 30 and 15 a game on Ayton, and
yeah,
I think AD is a great player. I don't care for the Lakers, but AD is transcendent in his talent, and his ability to sway a playoff series is gigantic. I think he's the most important player on the Lakers team because with LeBron, you're going to get your 38 and 8. You don't know what you're going to get from AD game to game. One game he might sprain his chin and then he's out for the whole series. So,
yeah. I
um,
the part where I
yeah,
talk with consistency, AD is one of the best talents in the league, without a doubt. I just
yeah,
think that his aggressiveness sometimes he lets off the throttle.
it
Like I
does
think if
waver.
AD was after it all regular season, he'd be in that talk with Giannis on that level. But I think
Hmm.
sometimes he just lets off being aggressive and says, "Oh, LeBron's got it."
Hmm. Yeah, I can agree with that. I can agree with that to some extent, but the Lakers are going to have AD coming down the stretch. And when I look at that bubble run, AD gave it to him. So until I don't see it, until I see the waveringness of confidence and aggression, um, I'm gonna trust AD's ability to um, almost single-handedly be able to single-handedly be able to flip a series. So I'm gonna ride with AD there.
Yeah.
Sacramento Golden State
Best
series is
series.
tied 2-2. You know the saying, right? Series does not start until a team wins a game on the road. That hasn't happened yet. Sacramento takes 1 and 2 at home, lighten the beam. Golden State takes 3 and 4 at home, tying this series up at 2-2. And this series had the biggest shot of any of the first round games so far,
Yeah.
which was Harrison Barnes' three on the wing in Game 4. Because if Sacramento got a road game in this series, it was over.
Yep.
It was
Yeah, I
over.
think Sacramento. You saw in the end of that Game 4 game. Part of the series has been them shooting themselves in the foot. You can definitely see a bit of inexperience, especially towards that late quarter there. I mean, you get Malik Monk who drives it into two people with a lot of time left on the shot clock in a close game,
Yep.
and they've just kind of let the Warriors stay alive in it, and it's made the series
Yeah.
really interesting.
And you can't let experienced teams get momentum. And I know people coming out of the Sacramento being up 2-0, people were like, Sacramento is probably going to win in 5. It's like, whoa, let's hit the brakes really quick because Draymond was suspended for Game 3, and people thought Sacramento was going to win Game 3. I had no intentions of Sacramento winning Game 3, even without Draymond. I was worried about the Draymond stuff a little bit, but after watching the first quarter, I thought Golden State was going to win that game, no doubt. Now, if Golden State had a cold first quarter, then maybe Sacramento would have won that game. But Golden State jumps out up 10 on them early in the first quarter of Game 3, sets the pace, gets the crowd into it.
Yep.
And I don't think I've ever seen a bigger swing from game to game of home crowds. Like Sacramento's home crowd has been awesome. It's like watching March Madness when they play at home. It's great.
Yep.
But then Golden State, you can say the same thing because their home crowd has been one of the best home crowds of the past 5 years just because they make impacts on games. Draymond gets them going. Steph hits a 35-foot three, and then it's like, oh, Golden State goes on an 11-0 run. And now they're up 5 out of nowhere. You saw it in the Boston finals all the time last year.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I love this series, though.
I think a big part of this series is Jordan Poole's production as well. He's been really inconsistent, and the thing is with
Been
Jordan Poole
terrible.
and Trae Young as well, they're kind of microwave players. other than offense, Jordan Poole doesn't bring a lot. He doesn't bring playmaking or defense or any of that. So if he's not shooting well, there's no use for him on the court.
Yeah, and the thing with Poole is he's got that really lackadaisical, smooth dribble offensive game to him. Like his dribble style is very smooth, um, but he gets lazy with the ball.
Yeah.
And Davion Mitchell has taken full advantage of that. Poole turns the ball over like a or has been turning the ball over like a madman in the series. And then if you can't shoot, you can't really play him. And you saw it in Game 4. Poole started over Draymond Green, and Kerr tried to get the ball to him early. I think at the end of the first quarter, Poole had more shot attempts than Steph Curry, which is insane to think about. But
Yeah.
they're just trying to get him going, and Sacramento is not letting him do that. I think Poole is the X factor for this Golden State team.
Yeah.
Like, you know what Draymond's going to do. You already know what Steph and Clay are going to do. They're going to hit the big shots. They're going to hit the long threes. But Poole has to be consistent on offense for this team to be running on all cylinders. And right now it's not, and the series is still 2-2, which is why I think my prediction still holds up. And now with Fox potentially being out Game 5 with I believe he sprained his left index finger
Yep. On the shooting hand. Yeah.
on a shooting hand because he's a lefty.
Yep.
Now he played through the end of Game 4 with that. Now he might be out for Game 5. Golden State, I think, can smell blood in the water here, and if Golden State comes out and wins Game 5, I don't think there's a chance in hell Golden State lets Sacramento win Game 6.
Yeah, no, I agree. Poole had a solid Game 4. He shot well, and
Yep.
that was really the difference maker right there. I mean, if you're the
Mhm.
Kings, even without De'Aaron, you still got to stick to the game plan. You notice whenever they take Steph out, the Kings immediately just load up and try and go on a run
Yep.
there because the Warriors are one of the worst teams in the league when Steph's off the court.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are, and which is why Steph is getting big minutes in these series. I believe he's playing like 43, 45 minutes a game right now because he has to.
Yeah,
It's the only way, because if he's off the court, like you said, 3 minutes off the court, Sacramento goes on a 9-0 run, hits 3 threes, and it's like, we have ourselves a game again. You saw it all the time in those home games in Sacramento where it's like Golden State, they start up 9, they start up 11. Curry comes off in the second quarter, and Trey Lyles hits a 3, Malik Monk gets an N1, and De'Aaron hits a mid-range. And it's like, oh, Sacramento's only down 3 now, and Steve Kerr has to put Curry back into the game.
yeah,
But now the home crowd is into it. So
yeah. I think if
this
Golden
has been an
State,
awesome series.
oh, without a doubt. I think if Golden State goes on to win this series, though, they're going to face some more experienced teams that are just going to abuse them. Curry can't play 43 to 45 minutes for 6 to 7 game series throughout the rest of these playoffs and make it to the finals, in my opinion.
So the matchup, if Golden State beats Sacramento and LA beats Memphis, who would you have coming out in a Lakers Warriors series?
I think I'd have the Lakers coming out. I
Really?
can't see with the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors have no depth as well. You go to the bench and you got Jordan Poole, then you got Gary Payton, and it kind of just dies
DiVincenzo,
off from there. And giving Steph,
Dante.
yeah,
Dante.
DiVincenzo, yeah, he's been, yeah. But I just think with that Lakers team, and D'Angelo's not a bad defender. D'Angelo Russell, he's not a bad defender at all. And I think I'd have the Lakers coming out of that
I
series.
disagree.
You
I think
disagree?
I'd
Yeah,
have Golden State just
really.
because I don't know I think LA made all the right moves at the trade deadline. The Hachimura pickup was great. They had, even though I think they were finally starting to figure out Westbrook, it was clear that they didn't want, like, LeBron was like the only guy who wanted Westbrook there. And we'll talk about Westbrook in the Clippers series right after this. And he's been fantastic in that series. But it was clear that the Lakers didn't really want Westbrook and didn't really need Westbrook. It was kind of just, it was kind of really just like a barrier to their
Yeah,
success. He was actually hurting them more than helping them. So
yeah,
I thought the Troy Brown Jr. Pickup was great. Jared Vanderbilt has been awesome for them defensively, and Russell's just another shooter for LeBron to hit. And Malik Beasley also, he struggled in this Memphis series so far. he can get hot, but I just turn to Steph's ability to single-handedly win 2 games in that series. I think he's actually gotten, like, better offensively since his unanimous MVP seasons almost, because it's like
Yeah.
because he had, like, prime Clay with those teams. Like, you had prime Clay, you had prime Draymond, who could actually shoot somewhat, um, in that offense, and then they got Kevin Durant right after that, and now that there's no KD, Clay's gone through 2 major injuries, isn't in his prime anymore, although he's been very good. Jordan Poole is incredibly inconsistent. Wiggins has been out for 20, 30 games this year. He's coming back. He's finally starting to find his rhythm, which I think has been huge in this series because he struggled games 1 and 2. If he hits the 3 in game 2, we're not talking about Sacramento the way we are right now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, he had a wide open look at the end of game 2. So I think Curry's just he's had to do more with a team that is less, and they're still finding success, and they won a championship last year. And I just think Steve Kerr would outcoach Darvin Ham. I'd probably pick Golden State in 6.
Really?
I think it'd be a great series, though.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so moving on. Last series, Phoenix, LA. Phoenix is up 3-1. Kawhi's already been ruled out for game 5, which sucks. And they already ruled out Paul George for the series. LA's done. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the series was shaping up to be the most interesting one as it was going along.
After 2 games.
It looked really competitive, and then just all of a sudden the news came out: Kawhi's gone, game 3, out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's really disappointing as a Clippers fan when you see that these past years have been riddled with injuries, and Kawhi, I think he played 50 games this year to get ready for the playoffs, and you still miss the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the thing with load management, is that if you don't play in the regular season and you don't get yourself a high seed, you got to beat some tougher teams, and your road is tougher in the playoffs, but you also can't get hurt in the playoffs. That's the risk you take. Like, if the Clippers were in Minnesota's spot right now, they'd probably be up 3-1 just like Denver, but Kawhi would be able to rest, and Paul George would be able to rest, and then you get them back for round 2. But yeah, it sucks because Kawhi looked so good in game 1 and 2. In games 1
Phenomenal.
and 2, he was hitting, like, even though Phoenix, I believe, won game 2 by like 10 or 13, they shot 50, 40, 90 from the field, or 50 from the field, 40% from 3, 92% from the line in that game. They couldn't miss. And Kawhi was still hitting shots to put them back within 7, put them back within 5. He got the steal on Durant, goes down, takes it for a dunk. And there, Avery?
Oh, technical difficulty. I'm back. All right.
But yeah, he was just making all the big plays.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, he's out for game 3, might be back for game 4. So it's like, okay, maybe there's resting Kawhi to maybe Phoenix can go up 2-1, but they give Kawhi a rest day. Then he's back fully healthy, rested for game 4. Because he spent a lot of energy in those first 2 games. But then it's Kawhi's out for game 4. And it's here we go again. If you're a Clippers fan, it sucks.
Yeah.
I think long term, I do want to cover one thing. I want to talk about Devin Booker real quick.
Yeah.
Devin Booker's been flat out insane.
Yeah. Other than
He's been
Kawhi, he's the
insane.
best player in this series. He has abused this Clippers defense off
Yeah.
the pick.
And I just don't understand the coaching aspect. It's like, okay, Booker goes out, kills you in game 2, scores 38. Then beats you even worse in game 3, scores 45. How do you not switch your rotations to where it's like, okay, let's make Durant do something now? Because I think when you look at the series and you go back and watch some of the tape, Durant's still the new guy there.
Yeah.
Like, you can see it. Some possessions, he's kind of just standing there waiting to get the ball, or like Booker will pass it to him, and then Booker will cut, and KD will give it right back because KD wasn't just not looking for the shot that possession.
Yeah.
And KD's still gonna get his,
He's
but he's
gotten a
kind
lot of
of
his off
a
free throws,
weird,
though.
yeah. But he's kind of been like a weird number two.
Yeah.
When I think Kevin Durant, that's the last thing I think in an offense.
All right.
But Booker's just been so great in this series that it's almost like Durant has fallen not to the wayside at all. He's still getting his shot attempts. He's still being incredibly efficient. Um, yeah, it's just been a weird thing for Phoenix. I think they're still working Durant into the system. But if you're the Clippers, how do you not like switch your rotations at all? You're just gonna
Yeah.
let Devin Booker keep killing you for the entire series? It makes no sense. And I love
Yeah.
Tyler. I think Tyler's been a great coach, and especially having to deal with the Paul George injuries and the Kawhi load management, his injuries over the
And what he
past
did for
couple of
Westbrook
years,
as well.
and what he's done for Westbrook. Exactly. Westbrook has been awesome. He's been awesome. And
Uh,
it's like he sucked from the field in game one. He was 3 for 19, but the Clippers still won, and he was great defensively. And it
yep.
feels like Ty Lue has unlocked the key for Westbrook to be relevant in the NBA again. Because LA basically locked him up, or the
Yep.
Lakers locked him up, and it feels like Ty Lue has kind of freed him. It's been great to watch.
He's currently third in the playoffs in blocks. It's wild.
Uh-huh.
Wow. It always
All
seems
on
to be
Durant, most
Katie.
likely.
It always seems to be Katie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as a Westbrook fan who has gone through the gutter these past 2 years, the absolute gutter. I mean, it's awesome to see. I'm very happy for him. You can see he's got his confidence back, and part of Westbrook is his confidence could be a bad thing, but it can
Mhm.
also be a good thing. But you just can't take it away, or else that
Mhm.
takes away him there. But I don't think he can keep up this 3-point shooting. Well, I know he can't keep up this 3-point shooting. He's shooting. It's not like he just all of a sudden found a 3-point shot that's over 40% at the
Mhm.
age of 34 in the playoffs. But I mean, I think his playmaking ability and with his defensive effort, especially when it comes to the playoffs, is going to be valuable to any team. The
Yeah,
turnovers are still
and
going to be there, but I mean, if you have 12 assists and 6 turnovers like he did, I mean, that's a 2-to-1 ratio there. That's still pretty solid.
yeah, it's not terrible, and he's been forced into the number one role in an offense that he's only been able to play in for 15 days or
Mm-hmm.
15 games, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And he's thrived. He's been great. And
Yeah.
I want to reiterate more on the defensive end. He's been stellar defensively. And it seems like when those later years in OKC and Houston, he was putting a lot more energy into I'm going to push the ball. I'm going to get these rebounds. We're going to push, 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 push. And everything's about offense and my ability to play make and keep the pace of the game high. Now it doesn't matter if I push anymore. I'm going to retransfer my energy into playing honestly some lockdown defense. He's been
Yeah.
awesome on Durant. Um, Booker's just been unguardable, so you can't really say much about Westbrook on
Well,
Booker, but he's been great on
well,
Durant. He makes game shifting plays.
statistically, when Westbrook has guarded Booker, Booker's been 5 for 14 from the field, shooting 36%. When Booker's had his way with literally everyone else, it's like at
Yeah.
least 55% shooting off of Booker. So
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to guarding, Westbrook has done the best against Booker there, and a big
And
part
the
of his
best against
success.
Durant.
Yeah, Durant as well. A big part of his success too. Just going back to the offensive end here, real quick, is the spacing. There was no
Mhm.
spacing for the Lakers for him there. He gets a lot of his shots in the paint, and
They're
Terrence
triple
Mann
teamed.
and a lot of these other Clipper players are shooting really well from the 3-point line. So that spacing has really helped him. But yeah,
Yeah,
defensively,
absolutely.
he's just kicked it up to another gear. So as a Westbrook fan, the bells are
That's
ringing.
awesome to see. It's awesome to
Yeah.
see, and like, especially when the Clippers go small, it's almost like Westbrook is their five because they're like Westbrook said, he is the best rebounding guard of all time, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, hey, if Westbrook can grab all these rebounds, we could just run a bunch of guards and run a bunch of shooters around him, almost like LeBron, and which is why the LeBron and Westbrook fit was terrible. And same thing with AD because he hasn't been able to shoot from three this year. I think he shot like 26% from three.
Yeah.
and now you just put him with a bunch of shooters, and look at you have a great offense. So
Yeah,
especially when he's been shooting the ball relatively well, especially for Westbrook standards, and he's still doing all the Westbrook things that contribute in a positive way. I think it's been awesome to see. It sucks that LA hasn't been able to take full advantage of it, but I hope LA brings him back next year.
agreed.
Um, I think because I think it would help with Paul George's and Kawhi's load management.
Hmm.
Hey, you can be a 3 or a 2 seed now, but you still get all the you still take away all the injury risk for Paul George and Kawhi in the regular season. I think it would be an interesting run it back situation, especially with how game 1 and game 2 went with a team
Yeah,
like the Suns, who are one of the favorites to win the finals.
yeah. I'd really like for the Clippers to bring back Russ again, and just to see how it works with PG there as well, and with Kawhi. And that's a good point you bring up with the load management because I mean, once they're back, Russ is not going to get as many touches as he's
Yeah,
having right here, right? But I mean, you throw the load management in there, you give Russ those touches throughout the regular season. The confidence is high. I mean, I'd like to see how this team shows up in the playoffs next year, but Kawhi and PG will probably get hurt in the playoffs again. So
yeah, yeah. They just had bad injury luck. One more
yeah,
question from this series. Um, I know Phoenix is up 3-1, but like, why does it feel like they're not dominating in the ways that they should be? Like, Booker's been great. He's been more than great. He's looks like the best shooting guard in the league right now, hands down, with the way he's playing. And Durant's been efficient. Chris Paul's been wishy-washy. He kind of like alternates every game whether he wants
yeah,
to be good or not. Torrey Craig's been great though. He's hitting big time threes for them. Ayton has been 16 and 10 for them every game. And they're winning all these games by 6. Durant's having to play 45 minutes, and Booker's having to play 45 minutes against a team with no Kawhi and no PG.
yeah.
Kind of worries me.
I mean, when you saw this trade, you were thinking just, oh, they're just gonna bulldoze through the West this year. But I mean, every game they've had. I mean, Norman Powell dropped 42 on them.
42, yeah.
42. I mean, it's really crazy to see. You look at it, and you're right. Booker is going crazy, but every game just seems way too close for a Suns team that just seems way too overpowered.
Yeah, they're definitely not deep. Their bench
No.
is awful,
Yeah.
which is why they're having to push Durant and Booker to these 45-minute limits. But you got to win 16 games that way, and you're gonna have to play some really tough competition, especially if like we were talking, like I was saying with the Boston Philadelphia series. If Boston wins that series in 5 and then goes to wins the Eastern Conference Finals of whoever comes out of that top region in 5, they're gonna be coming in with a lot of rest. And if Phoenix makes the finals, Durant and Booker are going to have a ton of minutes logged in these playoff games,
Yep.
and they're going to be really worn down. So
Yeah,
that
I
was
don't.
just an interesting point, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this is Phoenix's year this year. Honestly, I think he got a mesh this year, and I think they'll be knocked out. Not win one this year, but next
Interesting,
year, I mean, hopefully they don't win one. I don't want KD.
because they have no one on the bench that can contribute. It's like Durant's out for 3 minutes. It's like the Steph Curry thing. You got to get Durant back in because
Yeah,
LA's making a run.
yeah,
Same thing with Booker. Booker's out 3 minutes. You got to get Booker back in. LA's
yeah,
making a run, and when you have two players like that, it's tough with one. It's much tougher with two, where they
yeah,
have to be playing 45 minutes a game.
yeah.
So I think that's something very interesting. But we're going to get into some award talk. That's it for the playoffs. We're going to do more recap once all the series are over, and we'll look into the second round matchups. We want to do some awards real quick. I'm going to go through all NBA first team, second team, third team, and then the awards that have already been won. And then I think the only award that hasn't been given out is MVP.
Yep.
And we're gonna have a little MVP talk at the very end. We're actually gonna save that for last almost. So real quick, first team, all NBA. These are mine. These are not Avery's, so these are strictly mine. Point guard I had Shea. Shooting guard I had Donovan Mitchell. Small forward Tatum, power forward Giannis. and center is Jokic, which maybe is some foreshadowing for the MVP.
I love the
Any
SGA
comments there?
pick personally. Thunder
Hmm.
fan here, but Shai Gilgeous really showed out this year, and he was a little underrated on defense end. I'm really glad about that. I agree with Mitchell. I mean, I agree with the whole list. Mitchell really showed out. Tatum had one of the best wing seasons of the year. Giannis is just the peak of consistency, and
Yeah,
Jokic can't get more efficient.
exactly. So, yeah, and like you said with Tatum, like averaged 38 and 4 and wasn't even talked about as a top 3 MVP candidate. Insane. Insane. Because
Crazy.
almost any other year, he's like, hey, Tatum, most likely going to win MVP this year. It's not really going to be close. Averaging
Yeah.
38 and 4, and he's not even in the conversation. And like you said with Shai, first guard to average 30 points a game on 50% field goal shooting since Jordan. I think that says a lot. And
Yeah.
when you look at the Pelicans game especially, his ability to work in clutch moments, he just controls the pace of the game so well. Like it's awesome to watch. Everyone just plays at his pace, and
Mm-hmm.
he's able to work with the matchups that he wants. And when he ISOs, it's not like incredibly aggressive or overpowering. It's just super crafty, and he hits tough shots after tough shot
Yeah.
after tough shot, and still shoots 50% from the field
Yeah.
over the course of the season.
And
He was awesome.
yeah, another thing I saw that game too with Shai was he just let the game come to him. You almost
Mhm.
see with these young players that are leading their teams, they start forcing stuff up. But I mean, they focused in on him, and he waited, and then he finally attacked there towards the end of that game, and it was just really looked like such a veteran move by him. I'm
Yeah,
excited to see the
absolutely.
Thunder these next few years.
Yeah, especially with Chet coming back and their relatively high draft pick this year. Maybe they'll
Yeah,
work a bit something to trade up because Sam Presti's got all the assets in the world to do whatever he
yeah,
wants to do. So moving on, second team point guard I had Dame, shooting guard I had De'Aaron, I had Jalen Brown, I had Luca, and I had Embiid. The reason there's 4 guard/wings is the way they've changed the voting this year. You have to have a guard, you have to have a big, and then the 3 players in the middle can just be whoever. They can be a big, a wing. So, which is why Luca is also in the second team. Luca's not first team, which was kind of a surprise to me. But like, when you don't make the playoffs,
yeah.
I don't care if you average 33, 8, and 8. With the way that Dallas finished the year, it did not give me any reason to vote Luca first team.
No, no, I totally
I
agree. I
had
mean,
a vote, I guess,
you
but
look at 33, 8-8, and they're still a 4 seed. Luca's up there in the MVP talk. Also,
mhm.
it's
Yeah,
crazy.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And Embiid, that's just kind of like how the cookie crumbled, I guess. Because Jokic isn't a power forward by any means. He plays all his minutes at center. So
Yeah,
you have to pick and choose between them. If I could have put Jokic at power forward and moved Tatum, I would have moved Tatum to 2 guard, and then Mitchell would have been second team. But then you got to call a center up, and yeah, it would have been torture.
yeah,
Um, so Embiid just add to it's the greatest All NBA second team season probably ever.
yeah. I think most telling on your list here is both Fox and Brown. Just seeing Fox's improvement and Jalen Brown as well, just being that second option and just having a great season as well. That's really gone under the radar. And he might be gone
Yeah,
too. That might be a big
yeah.
loss.
The Celtics have to work their magic there. They got to keep Jalen on that team because when Tatum doesn't have it, like we said, like I said with Game 4 last night between the Celtics and the Hawks, Tatum had 31 but was not shooting the ball efficiently, and Brown was terrific.
Yeah,
Made all the big plays when they needed him, and he does it on the defensive end too. So I think and like those Philly games during the regular season where Tatum struggled, JB picked up all of the slack. So I think that was my vote there for second team. Third team, Steph. I had Jaw here. I know most people didn't have a job, but he played enough games for me to vote for him, so I voted for him.
All right.
LeBron also played enough games for me. I think if you play more than 50 to 55 games, you're good. If you don't play that, your vote, unless you average like 42 a night, you're probably not going to get my vote. Same thing with Anthony Davis. And Sabonis was kind of a lock for me on the third team as a center. He was doing Jokic-esque things with his ability to pass the ball on
Yeah.
the best scoring team in the league this year.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Sabonis really, really showed out this year, and he's gonna be a big part of the playoff series as well. I didn't mention that, but yeah, they're gonna have to rely on him a lot more.
He does have to play better in the Golden State Sacramento series because he really struggled in game one. I thought he played great in game two, but then the home games for Golden State, Sabonis was not much of anything.
No.
So he's really got to step it up for game five, especially with no De'Aaron. And then omissions, really quick. Drew Holiday, not there. Jimmy Butler, not there. Both Knicks I left out, and Randall and Brunson. I did want to put Brunson somewhere on here. It's just with Stephen Ja, I just couldn't find the spot for him.
So
my
many good
big
guards.
battle, way too many good guards. If there was a fourth team, you could make a fourth team with these guys easy.
Yeah.
One of my biggest battles was AD or Markkanen. Just because Markkanen was awesome for a Utah team that we all thought was going to just suck the entire year.
Yeah.
So that was a tough one. Kawhi was there because he actually ended up playing 50 games. Still, just the load management. It's just tough to vote for him in a regular season type deal.
Yeah.
And Durant had two big injuries, but the first player to ever shoot 55, 40, 90 over the course of a season shows why he's one of the 5 best scorers of all time with ease. But those are guys that left out. Would you put any of them in over the guys that I chose?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look at how many games Ja played, but I feel like him
55.
55.
I believe.
Yeah, your mark may be 50, but I'd say mine is more so in that 60 range. I'd probably switch out Ja with Holiday. Yeah. But I mean, other than that, really, I don't really have any quarrels.
Okay.
The one thing I want to ask is how legit do you see KD's 50, 40, 90 year? Do you consider it, like, with the amount of games he played? Would you consider it a legit 50? Yeah.
I think it's pretty legit.
Okay.
I mean, especially because like you still have to shoot the ball well, coming off of major injuries twice. And it's like he comes off back-to-back big injuries, which wipe him out for like 2 months of the season, and he still shoots the ball at that clip.
Fair enough.
KD's one of the only players that I've really seen like the Achilles thing in Golden State. Comes back, plays awesome. He's normal again. It's like he just rehabs so well from these injuries where he comes back, it's like nothing happened.
Yeah. No one's come off an Achilles and been the same.
Looks like him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
I do think it's legit. It would have been awesome for him to do it for like 60 games.
Yeah.
But I think 45 is enough for me to say like this dude he's just unguardable.
Okay.
So what's that? Okay. We're going to do all the announced winners first. So Defensive Player of the Year, Jaren Jackson Jr. won. I had Evan Mobley winning. Jaren Jackson Jr. just, again, didn't play enough games for me. He only played like 45 games this year.
Personally, Lopez was my pick.
Okay, so my thing with Lopez, as well as contest and block rates were great. I look at the rest of that team. I think Drew Holiday is a better defender, and I think Giannis is a better defender.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's somewhat systematic. And we look at the Miami series right now, Bam's kind of feeding it to him. So that's why I had Evan Mobley there. Most improved, I had Shea, actually, over Laurie. Laurie won earlier today. But I had Shea just because, like, I think the jump from, like, 24 a game to 30 a game is tougher than a jump from 13 a game to, I think Laurie's averaging 20, 22, 23 a game.
Yeah.
and Shea became the dominant number one option and was still efficient, it was
Yeah.
just more impressive to me.
I had Shea as well, honestly. When I thought of that award before Laurie won, I was like, man, like, who else but Shea? But yeah, I mean, I understand with Laurie, like, he kind of came
I
out
do
of
too.
nowhere
Yeah,
with
I do
it.
too.
But I mean, before last year too, no one really thought much of Shea. They never thought he was going to be like a big number one guy or take that leap. So I felt like he just came out of nowhere with that, and his improvements on defense as well, statistically.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think when we look at it, while he hasn't played in any like insane major playoff moments yet, at least while watching the Pelicans and the playing games, I just get the feeling that I can have Shea be my number one on a championship team. He can get the clutch buckets. He
Yeah.
knows how to play make. He's just an all around player. Whereas I think while Laurie had an amazing season, and just came out of nowhere, like you said, um, becoming a number one option on a Utah team. Just the Utah team never was in, never really had a realistic chance of contending, in my opinion, especially when we
Yeah.
hit the latter half of the season. And the Thunder were just much more in it. But
Yeah.
Laurie ended up winning, so congrats to him. That's awesome. Um, Coach of the year, Mike Brown was unanimous, and I also had Mike Brown winning. You take Sacramento, who hasn't made the playoffs in 16 years, and you're a 3 seed, and you're the best offensive team in the league. You're coach of the year.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't disagree. It's Mike Brown. Who would have thought the
six
beam was
man,
going to get lit?
um, six man of the year. I had Brogdon winning, and Brogdon actually won. I was actually somewhat surprised. I thought Quickly was going to win with the New York media bias chipping in, but
Uh,
I just think Brogdon's more important to his team.
yeah, Brogdon's been huge for the Celtics, and I mean, it was really just 1A, 1B between Brogdon and Quickly, really, and I think either one of them would have deserved it if it got
Mhm.
picked. But yeah, I'm completely fine with Brogdon having it, and he's going to be a huge part of this playoffs here
Yeah,
for the
I
Celtics.
couldn't even stress that more because you look at the team the games last year. The games that the Celtics lost last year were because they did not have a secondary ball handler when Tatum was turning the rock over like a madman in those Warriors games. Steve Kerr just threw so many looks at Tatum. Tatum was turning the ball over constantly. And basically, we were passing ourselves out of these games. You've heard the term shooting yourself out of a ball game. We were passing the way out of these games.
Yeah,
And now with a secondary ball handler in Brogdon that can go get his own and is averaging 15, and can play make still, and is a great shooter, and isn't a liability on defense. I just think he's more important to a better team. So I went Brogdon there. Rookie of the
yep,
year
agreed.
was Paulo. I think he
Yeah,
was one vote short of being unanimous. Someone voted Walker Kessler, I believe. Which Walker Kessler was great, but Paulo should have been unanimous.
yeah,
He averaged 20 a game
yeah.
quietly, in my opinion. Like being the number one overall pick and averaging 20 a game, I think is actually, I think there's something to be said about that.
Mm.
And no one really talked about it. It was just like, oh, Paulo won Rookie of the Year, cool, move on.
It's kind of like they were impressed at the start of the year. Like, he was getting a lot of media, then he just kept doing it, and everyone just, all right, he
Yeah,
just does.
tired of posting about Paulo scored 25.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But you
no,
wanted to
I
bring a
definitely
guy into
agree.
this.
Paulo should have been unanimous, and he definitely looked the best out of everyone, without a doubt. Uh, Walker Kessler, I mean, he looked great as well. I mean, you look at that Timberwolves trade, and it just looks even worse now when you look at how
Yes.
well Walker Kessler played.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm excited to see how Paulo develops
Hmm.
these next few years, and hopefully the Magic can get it done around him.
And you wanted to bring one more guy into this talk?
J Dub, Jalen Williams, my guy from OKC. He really turned it on at the end of the season here, won Rookie of the Month and averaging 18, 6, and 4, I believe, that month.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, he's one of the more unique players I've seen lately. He's 6'6", and he can jump out of the gym. He's strong. He can be a ball handler, but they really threw him into that spot on the short corner where you just pass the ball and he just goes up and just puts it down. And I think he's well, he is the steal of the draft this year. They got him at 12, and
Mhm.
his value, I think it was put at like second, just behind Paulo.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I had J Dub up there too for the rookie of the year as well, and I'm excited to see how he develops as well for this team as the third ball handler.
Also, also defensively, he was great.
Yeah,
So, and a team that doesn't have a dominant, I guess Lou Dort, it's kind of like, hey, you get to
yeah,
guard the best player every night. I think Jalen Williams could easily fill that role for OKC because he is constantly improved over the course of the year
yeah,
and eventually brought himself to at least be able to be in this conversation. So
yeah,
yeah, he definitely had a great especially second half of the year, but yeah, he did have a great year. And then
yeah,
MVP is the only one that hasn't been announced yet. It has been debated much over the year. You get five finalists. I had SGA at five, just the efficiency and the scoring that we talked about. I had
yep,
Tatum at four, and then there's the clear three, the upper tier of players here. I had Giannis at three. For a little bit, I was gonna vote if I had a quote unquote vote. I would have voted for Giannis at one point. But then I looked at the defensive numbers compared to Embiid's defensive numbers, and I leaned Embiid in that scenario. I also get the extra 3 points per game,
yeah,
and I just think Embiid was just more consistent throughout the year. Giannis had a couple games off, and Embiid just had more breakout performances. Like he dropped 47 and 18 on Jokic. So that's why I lead Embiid over Giannis.
yep,
But then the question was Jokic or Embiid, and I went Jokic. Um, the advanced statistics are just too hard to pass up. He almost averaged a triple double as a center, and people were talking all about Westbrook averaging a triple double.
yep.
And Jokic was 4/10 of an assist away per game from averaging a triple double as a center. And I just find that hard to turn down, especially with how efficient he was. Much more efficient than Embiid, which is also why I chose Jokic. Jokic
The
shot
efficiency is
64% from the field this year and almost 40% from three as a
yeah,
center.
yeah. It's absurd, and it's funny to see that once you get close to a triple double, just like Westbrook had that triple double, start
Mhm.
getting the stat padding accusations,
I
and
know.
the
All the Kendrick Perkins stuff.
narrative has really shifted it towards Embiid in these last few weeks or months here. But I think, yeah, that I'd give it to Jokic as well, and it's really just a 1A 1B situation again because Embiid, I mean, you go Embiid, Giannis, or Tatum, and you're not in this season. Almost any other season, these guys are winning MVP. Like how we mentioned earlier, like Tatum, I think they compared it to like LeBron's MVP season, and it was about the same there. It's one of the greatest wing seasons we've seen of the year, and yeah, but
Mhm.
Jokic's efficiency and almost averaging that triple double, having that first seed as well, I'd give it to him too.
Yeah, and there's definitely some really interesting, like, really advanced analytics that you can dive into. There's some stuff on wins above replacement, which has now been a stat that's really been heavy in baseball and really affects baseball MVP voting, which is where if you take out Jokic and you put him with the average bench player, the bench center in the league, how much worse does your team get? And the stats say your team would get 20 wins less without Jokic in the lineup, and no one else broke 11.
It's
I think
wild.
that says a lot. Yeah, and yeah, just Jokic, his ability to play make and how just massive he is for that Denver team. I think he's actually underrated defensively as well. Um, yeah, he just means so much. I do want to actually touch on the DeMarcus Cousins thing a little bit that I saw. I don't know if you saw this at all, where if he said if Jokic wins three straight, which it looks like it's going to go to Embiid, but if Jokic does win three straight, we're putting him in the likes with Shaq and Wilt and Russell and all these guys. And I disagree personally, just because three MVPs, yes, is phenomenal. but you got to go win something in the playoffs to be in those conversations, in my opinion.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I don't think I haven't heard any talk of is Jokic a top 5 center of all time. Giannis goes
Yeah,
and wins a Giannis wasn't getting that talk either until he won a ring against Phoenix. Then is Giannis better? Is Giannis the top 3 power forward? Is Giannis the best power forward of all time? People were throwing him in those discussions with the likes of Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett and Charles Barkley. No one's doing that with Jokic yet. I haven't seen
no.
anything. I haven't seen any first take clip, any undisputed clip of is Jokic Hakeem Olajuwon? No,
Yeah,
he's not. He's got to go win 1 or 2 rings before we can have these talks. Giannis got the same treatment. Jokic is going to get the same treatment.
yep. Especially now with the league we live in. I mean, it's a league of rings. It's a
Mm-hmm.
league of rings. You got to win a ring. James Harden's
Mm-hmm.
got to win a ring. Russell Westbrook's got to win a ring. I
Chris
mean,
Paul's got to win a ring.
he's still looking for that one. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't make any rash decisions about Jokic right now, and when it comes to all-time greatness. And part of that is, last year you give him a clean slate. I mean, it was just Jokic there. But yeah, I think if with this team he doesn't win, and even if they mix it up, he doesn't win more, then you look at those 3 MVPs and you're like, man, I mean, he was really great in the regular season, but yeah,
Yeah.
he's got to come with playoff success.
We can talk about him being one of the 5 best regular season centers of all time.
Yeah.
You can maybe make that argument if he three-peats at MVP. There's just no solidified argument if you can't win when it matters most.
Yeah.
So I did just want to touch on that real quick. I think it's kind of a stupid argument when we just did the same thing with Giannis 2 years ago. So
Yeah. You can give him the stat stuffer award.
Yeah, exactly.
So everything looks great on paper.
Last thing that we're going to touch on Ime Udoka going to the Rockets. Takes Boston to the finals last year, gets kicked for some abuse stuff with his girlfriend. So then Celtics fire him, bring in Joe Mazzulla. And Udoka was on the free market, and Houston just picks him up. Great signing from Houston, I think.
Yeah.
Boston was one of the best all-around teams last year. I believe they were first in defensive efficiency last year. And Houston needs defense desperately. Jalen Green doesn't stick any defense. KPJ doesn't stick any defense. As awesome as Sengun was this year, doesn't play any defense. They don't have anyone that can stick anybody. And now you bring a defensive coach in who also ran one of the best offenses last year. And I can think really take Jalen Green's game to another level and use Sengun efficiently. I think it's a great hire by Houston.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great hire, and I think it's going to be a real test for Udoka here because I think that Houston locker room is just completely trashed. I mean, I watched some of the games, and it just looks like they're trying to do a and one mixtape. Jalen Green gets the ball. Oh, I'm going now, KPJ. I'm going. Oh, no, it's my turn now. My turn now. And it's just there's no winning culture in there right now, and you got to switch that up. You got to bring in some veterans. You got to teach Jalen Green and KPJ how to play within an offense instead of playing to make highlights.
Yeah, just playing winning basketball.
Yeah.
Which Udoka got a blessing getting Tatum and Jaylen Brown and just that great roster last year, and taking them to the finals and going 6 games with Golden State, a very experienced team. Now you bring in a guy that has proven he can win in the playoffs, even though it was only 1 year. But he can coach. Also showed it as an assistant in Brooklyn beforehand. And now you bring in just a winning coach for a losing organization at this point, since the whole James Harden fiasco. And I just think it's a great hire. And I just think they'll just play better team basketball.
Yeah.
And with a roster that's growing and developing, it's just a great hire.
Yep, agreed. And no blame on Houston's last coach as well. I don't think he
No,
did
no, no, no,
awful.
no.
Yeah, no, I think it was just really a rough situation he got put in there to start his
Yeah,
career. Yeah,
and he draws Westbrook and Harden because Westbrook wants him, then Harden wants out. So then it's like then we have to get rid of Westbrook. And then this year it was just a grow our young players kind of year, and it
yeah,
was kind of just he was just a transitional coach then at this point this year. Steven Silas was so
yeah,
sucks for him, but I think it's a great move by Houston to bring in Udoka.
without a doubt. Draft's gonna be interesting for sure.
Yes, it is, and we'll do some mock stuff when that time comes around. But that's after the playoffs, so
Yeah,
that's gonna do it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. A little bit of a longer episode just because we had a lot to talk about. But gonna be interesting to see how some of these series wrap up, especially the series that are tied to two. With the I'm really tuned into the Sacramento Golden State series. That's my favorite series by far. But
yep,
yeah, that's gonna do it. To follow everything Hurdle Podcast, tune into our Instagram. We're actually posting reels now. We're doing some stuff with the NFL draft over there, and I'm doing some like game by game recaps over there, which I really enjoy doing. Hope you guys like them. But follow the Instagram at Hurdle Podcast, HRDL Podcast, spelled there, and then just subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn on the notifications so that way you guys know when we post. We also post every time an episode drops. So tune in there, and yeah, that's gonna be it. Thanks for coming on, Avery. Pleasure to have you
yep.
back.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back. Hurdle's back.
Absolutely. So, Bailey, Avery, we're out, guys. Peace.